The wind cut across the highway like a whisper of judgment as Eli Ward sat alone in the diner's corner, booth, coffee gone cold, eyes fixed on nothing and everything. The bell above the door rang when Deputy Briggs swaggered in, badge gleaming under the flickering neon sign. The deputy's voice carried more ego than authority as he demanded ID, citing a vague complaint about a drifter loitering near the gas station. Eli's answer came slow, deliberate, a single phrase that silenced the room. "I don't show papers without reason." The tension thickened. Forks paused midair. A clock ticked louder than reason. Sheriff Raines entered, sizing Eli up with suspicion and the subtle arrogance of a man used to being obeyed. Outside, thunder rolled across the plains, and rain began its slow assault on the glass. As the sheriff pressed harder, Eli's calm grew colder, and just when Briggs reached for his cuffs, the diner door burst open. 3 FBI agents entered, soaked in stormlight, their presence heavy and unannounced. The lead agent glanced at Eli, then saluted. Silence fell, absolute and shattering, as the sheriff's authority crumbled beneath a truth none of them yet understood. The rain thickened outside as disbelief rippled through the diner. Sheriff Raines' voice faltered, the badge on his chest suddenly feeling lighter. Deputy Briggs looked between Eli and the FBI agents, like a man who had stepped into a story he couldn't read. Agent Harper Lang spoke softly, identifying herself, her tone steady but edged with awe. She told the sheriff to stand down, her eyes never leaving Eli's face. Eli didn't speak, only offered the faintest nod, like an unspoken pact being honored. The other patrons whispered, some fearful, some reverent, as Maya's phone trembled in her grip, recording history disguised as confusion. The moment stretched thin, fragile, as the reflection of neon light on the wet floor, as though the air itself was deciding whose truth would survive the night. Agent Harper motioned for her team to lower their weapons, her eyes scanning the stunned crowd before settling on Sheriff Raines. She addressed him with the weight of command, explaining that Eli Ward wasn't a fugitive, but a man protected under sealed federal service, his records classified since 2012. Raines' disbelief hardened into pride's last defense. "No man's above the law," he muttered, to which Harper quietly replied, "Some men wrote the law in blood." Eli's gaze shifted toward the window, where the storm was breaking, as if listening to ghosts beyond the thunder. The air thickened with the scent of rain and revelation. The diner, once ordinary, now held the weight of forgotten history, and in that silence, respect began to replace doubt. Briggs' voice broke the silence, trembling as he muttered an apology to Eli, his earlier bravado melting into guilt. Eli gave no judgment, only the faintest nod, as though forgiveness didn't need to be spoken. Harper stepped closer, lowering her voice to remind him of the old mission in Kabul. The one where 3 agents never came back except for her, saved by a man who vanished. The truth uncoiled like smoke. Eli Ward was not a ghost, but a hero buried by bureaucracy, lost to the system he once protected. Maya's camera caught his expression. No pride, no anger, just the quiet weight of a man tired of carrying justice alone. The sheriff removed his hat, shame and respect merging under the diner's dim hum. The tension finally broke as Harper asked Eli to come with her, not under arrest, but for protection. Outside, red and blue lights reflected against puddles, creating ripples of uncertain calm. The town's quiet was shattered by curiosity, news vans already forming down the road, drawn by the viral video Maya had uploaded moments earlier. Eli glanced back at the diner once more, his face unreadable, his eyes carrying the burden of both guilt and grace. As he stepped into the storm, Harper followed beside him, no longer the agent and the ghost, but 2 survivors of a truth too heavy for words. Sheriff Raines watched from the doorway, his reflection broken by raindrops, authority humbled by justice that refused to carry a badge. By dawn, the storm had passed, but the town buzzed with the hum of unanswered questions. Eli sat in the back of an unmarked SUV, his wrists unbound, his silence heavier than chains. Agent Harper sat beside him, explaining that his name had resurfaced in a classified leak tied to an unsolved operation 12 years ago. The one that ended his career and nearly took his life. She spoke of a conspiracy buried deep within the Bureau, a file marked only with his initials. Eli listened, unflinching, the reflection of the sun glinting off the passing fences like bars on an invisible cage. In the distance, the sheriff's cruiser followed, not as escort but as penance. The road stretched ahead, endless and uncertain like justice itself, unforgiving, unending, and always watching. The convoy arrived at a small federal outpost, a forgotten building surrounded by silence and the ghosts of old cases. Inside, Harper led Eli to a secure briefing room. Files marked classified were spread across the table, each stamped with his code name, Raven 12. She told him the truth. That his disappearance was ordered to protect him after exposing corruption within a high-level intelligence task force. The men he exposed were never tried. They now occupied seats of power. Eli's jaw tightened. Then it was all for nothing, he said quietly. Harper met his gaze. No, it's not over yet. The old spark of purpose flickered behind his tired eyes, the flame of a soldier who once believed justice could survive its own guardians. Sheriff Raines waited outside the briefing room, uneasy amid the sterile corridors of federal authority. He watched agents rush by with urgency, their purpose alien to his small-town order. Maya arrived unexpectedly, escorted by a federal officer. Her footage had gone viral, forcing transparency the Bureau couldn't control. Raines confronted her, warning that playing with fire would get her burned. She answered, "Maybe, but at least I'll see who's holding the match." Their eyes met with mutual respect. The sheriff, realizing truth, didn't always wear a badge, and Maya, learning justice, didn't always wear a uniform. The faint echo of Eli's name over the intercom punctuated the tension like a gunshot of destiny. Inside the interrogation room, Eli faced a wall of photographs. Men in suits, faces blurred by censorship. Harper explained that these were the architects of the scandal he exposed, and one of them was now running for high office. His blood ran cold as he recognized a familiar face. The man who had ordered him left for dead. Harper admitted she'd reopened the case in secret after discovering the cover-up, but now they were both targets. The past had returned with teeth. Eli stood, eyes burning with quiet fury, the soldier in him resurfacing after years of restraint. "If they want me buried," he said, "then they should done it right the first time." Outside, the wind carried dust across the barren outpost. Sheriff Raines stepped out for air, the weight of what he'd overheard pressing against his chest. Maya joined him, her camera lowered for once, her voice soft. "You believe him, don't you?" Raines nodded, the admission slow, deliberate. "I believe the law failed him." Harper exited the building, briefing in hand, face grave. "They know he's alive," she said. "They're coming." The sheriff reached for his radio, instinct taking over, but Harper stopped him, not law enforcement. "They're inside." The three of them stood in the dying light of day, understanding that the next battle wouldn't be fought in court, but in the shadows that law forgot. Night fell fast over the desert, swallowing the last gold of the sunset in silence. Inside the outpost, the hum of electronics filled the void as Harper traced encrypted data streams back to a single source. A private contractor linked to the same men Eli had exposed years ago. Raines watched from the doorway, his instincts flaring. Something felt wrong. Then the lights flickered once, twice, before dying completely. In the sudden darkness, Eli's voice was calm and certain. "They're not coming. They're already here." A moment later, gunfire shattered the windows and chaos erupted. Harper dove for cover. Raines drew his weapon, and Eli moved with a precision too sharp to forget. The man who once vanished had returned to the fight he never asked for. The assault was quick and calculated, Black-clad mercenaries flooded the perimeter, their movements sharp and trained. Harper called out tactical commands, but their communication was jammed. Maya, hiding beneath a desk, streamed the attack live, her trembling hands gripping her phone, capturing truth through fear. Eli slipped through the chaos, silent as a ghost, disarming two intruders in swift, brutal precision. Every move revealed the soldier he'd once been, and the ghost the Bureau tried to bury. Outside, a truck exploded, lighting the horizon with hellfire. In that infernal glow, Harper caught a glimpse of Eli moving like memory and justice intertwined, unstoppable, unafraid, and unwilling to disappear again. When the smoke cleared, only silence remained, broken by the buzz of static and a faint voice over the radio. Phase 1 complete. Harper looked to Eli. He was already checking the fallen attackers' insignias. No military unit, no identifiable marks, only a small emblem etched on their weapons, a silver falcon, the logo of a powerful defense contractor. Harper's face went pale. "Falcon Dynamics," she whispered. "They're untouchable." Rains clenched his jaw. Nobody's untouchable, but Eli knew better. He had spent years buried because he'd tried to touch them once before. He turned toward the shattered windows, dust swirling in the moonlight. "They buried the truth with me once," he said. "This time, they'll bury the lie." As the survivors regrouped, Harper revealed the next target, a corporate facility outside Dallas where Falcon Dynamics stored encrypted records. She'd tried for years to access the data legally, but was blocked by senior officials every time. Now, with Eli alive, those barriers could be breached. Rains hesitated, torn between duty and truth, his badge feeling more like a shackle than a shield. Maya, now live streaming to thousands, asked Eli what he intended to do. His answer was as steady as a verdict. Finish what justice couldn't. Harper nodded, understanding that this wasn't rebellion. It was redemption. The law had failed. The truth would not. The convoy rolled out before dawn, their headlights slicing through the fog like beacons of defiance. Harper drove the lead vehicle, eyes fixed on the horizon. Rains followed close behind, his cruiser stripped of insignia, carrying the weight of a choice he could no longer undo. Eli sat in silence, his mind haunted by the faces of the men Falcon, destroyed by the oath he'd taken long ago to defend the innocent, even from those in power. As the first rays of sun touched the horizon, Maya's voice broke the stillness. "If we die doing this," she said softly, "the world will finally know why." Eli looked ahead, expression unreadable, then into Wirthet, and the road ahead stretched into the dawn like the edge of reckoning. Dawn melted into daylight as the convoy reached the industrial outskirts of Dallas, where Falcon Dynamics loomed like a fortress of mirrored glass and steel. Harper parked behind an abandoned warehouse, pulling up a schematic of the facility she'd stolen years ago. "They built this place to keep the truth locked inside," she said. Eli's gaze traced the high fences, surveillance towers, and guards moving with mechanical precision. "No wall built by men lasts forever," he murmured. Sheriff Rains checked his weapon in silence, the reflection of his badge catching the light. Then he removed it and tucked it away. Maya adjusted her camera, documenting everything. The hum of drones buzzed overhead, the modern eye of control watching its own reckoning approach. Harper outlined the plan. Breach the southern utility tunnel, reach the mainframe, and extract the data that tied Falcon to illegal surveillance and political assassinations. Rains volunteered to cover the outer perimeter, while Eli and Harper infiltrated the underground route. Maya insisted on joining them, her camera light piercing the darkness like conscience itself. The air beneath the facility was damp and claustrophobic, filled with the hum of unseen machines. "I've been watching the world for years," Harper whispered. Eli touched the concrete wall, feeling vibrations, servers humming with secrets. "Then, let's make the world watch them back." For the first time in years, justice had found its heartbeat again, echoing beneath the ground. They reached the sublevel door, sealed with biometric locks. Harper pulled a thin wire from her sleeve. An old spy's trick, a remnant of the life she swore she'd left behind. Sparks flared as she bypassed the system. The door hissed open, revealing a cathedral of servers bathed in sterile blue light. The hum of power was hypnotic. Eli stepped forward, scanning the room, his instincts warning of eyes unseen. Harper began the download, typing commands faster than breath, while Maya filmed every flicker of data cascading across the screen. Then the monitors blinked red. Intrusion detected. Alarms screamed. Harper froze. Eli drew his weapon. And from the far end of the corridor, security units emerged, rifles raised. They knew who'd come, Harper whispered. They always do. Bullets shattered the air as Harper yanked Maya behind cover. Eli returned fire, his movements swift and surgical. Sparks lit the corridors as glass and metal exploded in synchronized chaos. Rains, hearing the alarms from outside, stormed through the main gate in his cruiser, crashing through a barricade to draw the guards' attention. "You wanted the law," he shouted into the chaos. "You got it!" Inside, Harper completed the data transfer, the flash drive glowing green. "We've got it!" she cried, tossing it to Eli, just as a bullet grazed her shoulder. He caught it, pulled her upright, and together they fled through the smoke, Maya clutching her camera, recording the moment truth escaped captivity. They burst into the daylight, flames and debris behind them. Raina's cruiser screeched to a halt beside the exit tunnel, riddled with bullet holes. Harper stumbled into the back seat, bleeding but alive. Eli tossed her the flash drive and climbed in, shouting, "Go!" as Rains gunned the engine. Maya leaned out the window, filming the Falcon logo burning on the building behind them. In her lens, justice looked like fire devouring the empire of deceit. Sirens echoed across the highway, but for the first time, none of them felt like prey. Harper held the drive tightly against her chest, whispering through the roar of the wind, "Now the world will see." Eli looked out over the horizon, his eyes narrowing. "Only if we make it that far." The highway stretched endlessly beneath a bruised sky. Eli sat silent in the back seat as the sirens faded into the distance, his mind sharp, heart steady. Harper's wound was patched with torn fabric, her face pale but focused on the flash drive, the key to everything. Rains drove hard. Every turn a risk, every mile a countdown. Maya, still filming, whispered updates to her unseen audience, her voice trembling but resolute. "They have the evidence, and the people chasing them built the system." A military chopper roared overhead, sweeping the asphalt with its spotlight. "They're locking the state down," Harper said through gritted teeth. Eli looked out the window toward the rising dust trail behind them. "Then we stay ahead of the truth until the world's ready to hear it." They reached an old safe house in the desert, a forgotten ranger station Eli once used in another life. Inside, dust blanketed every surface, the air thick with ghosts of the past. Harper set up her laptop, connecting the drive to a secure uplink. Rains stood guard at the door, his revolver steady, but his conscience trembling. Maya kept recording, her camera now a confession booth for the nation. "People won't believe this," she whispered. Eli replied without looking up. "They don't have to believe. They just have to see." The computer pinged, a transfer beginning. Then, from the darkness outside, headlights flared. The past had caught up again. Engines roared outside. Falcon's private security forces surrounded the building, moving like shadows with purpose. Harper whispered, "We're out of time." Eli checked the upload. 60%. He turned to Rains. "You can still walk away." The sheriff holstered his gun, jaw set. "Not when I finally understand what law was supposed to mean." The first bullet shattered a window, sending splinters of light across the room. Maya ducked, camera still rolling. Eli returned fire, precise and unyielding. Harper slammed a new command into the terminal. Upload priority override. Sparks erupted from the wires as data surged faster. Hold them off, she shouted. Eli smiled faintly. Wasn't planning on dying quiet. Gunfire tore the night apart. Harper's screen read upload complete, just as a rocket slammed into the side of the building, throwing everyone to the floor. The laptop cracked but held. The transmission had gone through. It's out! Harper gasped, coughing through smoke. Rains pulled her to her feet as Eli kicked open the back door. We're leaving now. They fled into the desert under a red horizon of fire. Behind them, the safe house burned, a pyre for every truth buried too long. Overhead, the helicopter circled back, searching, but it was too late. The story was already loose, spreading faster than bullets could fly. By sunrise, the footage was everywhere. News outlets, encrypted channels, and social media flooded with Maya's live stream, and the files Harper released. Proof of Falcon's corruption, assassinations, and government ties. The world watched, stunned. But as the team stood on a distant ridge, exhausted and silent, Eli's expression remained grim. This isn't over, he said. They'll spin it, bury it again. Harper smiled faintly, her voice soft but sure. Maybe. But this time, people know your name. The wind swept across the sand, carrying ashes and dawn light together. Rains looked out toward the horizon, his badge still in his pocket. Guess justice doesn't wear a uniform anymore, he said. Eli turned away from the rising sun. It never did. The sun climbed high, indifferent to the chaos it illuminated. Across the nation, Falcon dynamics burned under the weight of exposure. Executives fled, politicians denied, and the Bureau scrambled to contain the fallout. But truth, once freed, refused to die quietly. In a safe house near the border, Eli watched the news in silence. Harper sat beside him, her shoulder bound in gauze, exhaustion softening her usual steel. Maya's phone buzzed non-stop. Interviews, requests, threats. Rains cleaned his revolver in the corner, the man now stripped of everything except purpose. They're not finished, Eli said quietly. Falcon won't fall without trying to drag us down with it. Harper met his gaze. Then we don't hide. We finish what they started. Outside, a black SUV rolled slowly past. Retaliation had arrived. By dusk, they were on the move again. Harper traced the SUV's route. Mercenaries disguised as federal agents. They're sweeping the border, she said. They want you alive, Eli. The others, not so much. Eli adjusted his coat, tucking a folded photo of a fallen soldier into his pocket. A memory of the men Falcon erased? Then they'll get what they came for, he said. Rains eyed him warily. That sounds like a death wish, Eli replied, calm and cold. No, a promise. The night thickened around them as they left the highway, their headlights off, their path swallowed by desert. In the darkness ahead waited both justice and consequence, two faces of the same truth. They reached an abandoned airstrip near the border, once used for covert supply runs, now a graveyard of forgotten missions. Harper planned to meet a whistleblower from inside Falcon who'd reached out after the leak. The air was heavy with dust and silence. Then a distant hum broke through, the sound of an approaching drone. Eli looked up. Too quiet, he muttered. Within seconds, missiles struck the far end of the runway, throwing sand and steel into the sky. The explosion sent them diving for cover. They found us, Maya screamed, clutching her camera. Rains returned fire toward the distant lights. Harper crawled to Eli's side, blood trickling from her temple. They're not stopping this time, she said. Eli's eyes darkened. Neither am I. The battle turned desperate. Rainus cruiser, riddled with bullets, erupted into flames as Falcon's strike team advanced. Eli and Harper moved like ghosts, flanking the mercenaries through smoke and fire. Harper fired controlled bursts while Eli fought hand to hand, his movements sharp with purpose. Maya kept low, capturing it all, her lens trembling but unbroken. One mercenary cornered Harper, weapon raised. Before collapsing, Eli's knife buried deep in his chest. "You never stop protecting people," she gasped. He replied, "Some debts don't die." Rains shouted from across the airfield, "We're outnumbered." Eli looked at the burning wreckage, face calm. Not outlived. He grabbed a fallen rifle and turned the tide one last time. The field lay quiet when dawn arrived, littered with smoke, blood, and the scent of victory soaked in loss. Rains sat against a burnt wing, his side bleeding, staring at the horizon. Harper limped toward the wreckage, dragging Maya to safety. Eli stood at the center of the ruin, holding a radio head pulled from a fallen mercenary. The voice on the other end was smooth, deliberate. The same one from his past. "You can't kill the system, Ward. You only feed it." Eli stared at the rising sun, then dropped the radio into the sand. Then let it choke. Harper joined him, exhausted but unbroken. Maya turned her camera to capture them silhouetted in firelight. Proof that some wars for truth end not in victory, but in survival. 2 days later, the world had changed, but not enough. The leaked files had ignited protests, investigations, and resignations, yet the architects of Falcon still moved in shadows, untouched. Eli and Harper drove north toward the capital, carrying one last piece of evidence. A hard drive proving Falcon's funding came from within the government itself. Rains, pale but alive, refused to be left behind. "You'll need someone to watch your back when justice stops playing fair," he said. Maya followed in a borrowed van, live streaming every mile of the journey. The roads were lined with news crews, billboards flashing the words "truth exposed." But for Eli, this wasn't exposure. It was unfinished business. "This ends where it started," he murmured. In the halls that swore to protect us, they arrived at the Capitol under heavy rain. Crowds gathered behind barricades, chanting for justice. Media vans lined the streets, their lights flashing through the storm. Harper clutched the hard drive as they approached the federal building, flanked by armed guards who still didn't know whether to protect or arrest them. Inside, the air was marble cold and sterile, every step echoing like judgment. Rains limped ahead, pushing open the massive doors to the hearing chamber. At the head of the table sat Director Alan Strickland, the man Eli once trusted, the man who had signed his death warrant years ago. The two men locked eyes, and for the first time, the Predator looked afraid. Strickland's voice carried false calm as he greeted them. "Mr. Ward, I hoped you'd stay dead." Eli didn't flinch. "You almost got your wish." Harper placed the hard drive on the table, connecting it to the chamber's projector. Screens around the room flickered to life, displaying Falcon's internal communications. Orders signed by Strickland himself. Senators gasped, cameras rolled, and Maya streamed the revelation live from the back row. Strickland tried to rise, shouting denials, but Eli's voice cut through the chaos. "You buried men for knowing the truth. You buried me. But justice doesn't stay underground forever." As security swarmed, Strickland lunged for the drive, only to freeze as Rains drew his revolver, steady and silent. "Sit down, Director," the sheriff said. "We're not done." Security officers burst in, but the crowd outside had already seen the broadcast. Millions watching as corruption unfolded live. Senators demanded answers. Reporters shouted questions, and Strickland's empire collapsed in real time. Harper leaned against the table, blood seeping through her bandage, whispering to Eli, "We did it." But Eli's eyes stayed fixed on Strickland, who now sat trembling, stripped of the power that once shielded him. "You built your truth on the graves of men better than you," Eli said quietly. "Today, they get their names back. Cameras flashed like lightning as he turned away. For the first time, he looked at peace. Not victorious, but unburdened. The ghosts that haunted him finally had a voice. Days later, the storm had passed. The truth had become law. Falcon Dynamics dissolved, and its leaders arrested. Yet, victory came with silence. In a quiet cemetery on the edge of Texas, Eli stood beside 3 simple graves marked only with initials. Men he once led. Men who never came home. Harper approached, placing her badge beside one of the stones. "You could stay," she said softly. Eli shook his head. "Justice doesn't retire." Maya filmed the moment, her voice breaking as she asked, "What will you do now?" Eli looked toward the distant horizon where thunder rolled again. "What I've always done," he replied. "Keep walking." As he left down the empty road, Rains called after him. "You ever need backup?" Eli smiled faintly. "I know where to find you."